It's too big, I can't bear it. The Apache girl pleaded with the lone farmer. The sun was already low when the lone farmer finished his work for the day. He lived far from the busy roads, on land that stretched wide and quiet, where the wind spoke louder than people. His days followed the same simple pattern: wake before sunrise, tend the fields, care for the animals, and return to his small wooden house before dark. He did not complain about the silence. In fact, he preferred it. Silence asked no questions and demanded nothing from him. That evening, as he walked back toward his house, something unusual caught his eye near the old fence line. At first, he thought it was an animal, maybe a deer caught between the posts. But as he moved closer, he saw a small figure standing still, almost frozen. It was a girl. She looked young, tired, and unsure, like someone who had walked too far without knowing where to stop. She wore worn clothes and held a small bundle close to her chest, as if it were the only thing keeping her steady. Her long dark hair was messy from travel and dust covered her shoes. She did not look dangerous. She looked afraid. The farmer stopped a few steps away. He had learned long ago not to rush people who looked like they might run. In a calm voice, he asked if she was lost. The girl looked up quickly, eyes wide, as if she had not expected anyone to speak to her. For a moment, she said nothing. Her lips parted, then closed again. She shook her head slightly, then nodded, confused even by her own answer. The farmer could see she was exhausted. Not just from walking, but from something deeper. He pointed gently toward his house and said she could rest for a while if she needed. There was no pressure in his words, only an offer. The girl hesitated. Her feet did not move, but her shoulders dropped a little, as if the weight she carried pressed harder the longer she stood. Finally, in a quiet voice, she spoke. She said she did not know where else to go. The burden she carried, she said, felt too big, too heavy. She could not bear it anymore. The farmer did not ask what she meant. He knew better than to demand explanations from someone already struggling. Instead, he nodded and walked slowly toward the house, leaving space for her to follow if she chose. After a few seconds, she did. Inside the house, everything was simple. A wooden table, 2 chairs, a small stove, and shelves lined with tools and old books. The girl stood near the door, unsure where to sit. The farmer poured her a glass of water and placed it on the table. She drank it carefully, like someone afraid it might disappear if she moved too fast. As she sat, the farmer noticed her hands trembling, not from cold but from holding herself together for too long. He asked her name, but she shook her head. She was not ready for that yet. He respected that and spoke instead about the weather, the crops, and how quiet the land was this time of year. Slowly, the tension in her shoulders eased. She listened more than she spoke, but her eyes followed his movements. She was watching, learning whether this place was safe. After a while, she spoke again. She said she was Apache, from a community not too far away, but far enough to feel alone. She did not go into detail, but her words came carefully, like stepping across thin ice. She talked about responsibility placed on her too early, about being expected to stay strong even when she felt like she was breaking. The farmer listened without interrupting. He had known his own share of loss and heavy days. He understood that some weights were not meant for one person to carry alone. She explained that she had walked away not because she was careless, but because she could not breathe under the pressure anymore. Every step she took away from home felt wrong, yet staying felt impossible. When she said again, "It's too big, I can't bear it," her voice cracked, and she looked down, ashamed of needing help. The farmer leaned back in his chair and spoke gently. He told her that sometimes strength did not mean holding on tighter. Sometimes it meant setting the load down, even if only for a moment. He told her she could stay the night, rest, and think with a clearer head in the morning. The girl did not answer right away. She looked around the room again, then nodded slowly. For the first time since arriving, her breathing became steady. That night, As the wind moved across the fields outside, the farmer lay awake thinking about the unexpected visitor. He did not know why fate had brought her to his land, but he sensed that this meeting was not an accident. The girl slept in the small spare room, holding her bundle close, but for the first time in a long while, she slept without fear. Morning would bring questions, choices, and challenges neither of them could yet see. But for now, under the quiet roof of a lone farmer's house, a heavy burden rested, just a little lighter than before. Morning arrived slowly on the quiet farm. Pale sunlight slipped through the small window and touched the wooden floor. Birds called from the trees, and the soft sound of animals moving outside filled the air. The girl woke up suddenly, as if she had forgotten where she was. Her body tensed, ready to run. Then she remembered the calm voice, the glass of water, and the peaceful silence of the house. She sat up and listened. There was no shouting, no rush, no pressure, only quiet. She stepped out of the small room and saw the farmer already awake, moving calmly around the kitchen area. He was preparing a simple breakfast. He did not turn suddenly or stare. He only nodded to show he had seen her and went back to his task. That small act made her feel respected. She sat at the table, still holding her bundle, unsure if she should put it down. The farmer placed a plate of warm food in front of her and said she should eat. She hesitated at first, then slowly began. It had been a long time since someone had prepared something just for her without asking for anything in return. Each bite felt heavy with emotion, and she had to pause more than once to steady herself. After eating, the farmer stepped outside to tend to his animals. The girl followed him quietly. She watched as he worked with patience and care, never rushing, never raising his voice. The land responded to him gently, as if it trusted him. She realized then that his strength came from consistency, not force. As the morning passed, the girl began to speak more. Not all at once, but in small pieces, like stones laid one by one to form a path. She talked about her life before coming to the farm. She had grown up learning to be responsible early. When others her age were learning freely, she was already carrying expectations. She was expected to help, to lead, to stay strong, and to never show weakness. She explained that her community was facing hard times. Resources were limited, and emotions ran high. When things became difficult, people looked to her, even though she was still young. They believed she could handle it because she always had before, but inside, she felt like she was shrinking under the weight. The farmer listened while repairing a fence. He did not look at her directly, but she knew he was paying attention. She felt safer speaking when she was not being watched too closely. She admitted that some nights she could not sleep. Her mind raced with worries about making the wrong choice, letting people down, or failing completely. She felt trapped between duty and her own breaking point. When she finally walked away, she felt both relief and deep guilt. The farmer paused his work and finally spoke. He said that burdens grow heavier when they are carried alone. He told her that many people confuse silence with strength. They believe that if someone does not complain, they are fine, but silence can hide deep pain. The girl looked down at the ground, her foot tracing shapes in the dirt. She said she was afraid that if she admitted she could not carry everything, people would lose respect for her. She feared being seen as weak. The farmer shook his head slowly. He said respect built on fear of weakness was not real respect. True respect came from honesty and balance. He shared a small piece of his own past, explaining that he had once tried to carry everything alone too. It had cost him friendships and peace before he learned that asking for help did not make him less of a person. The rest of the day passed with simple tasks. The girl helped where she could, feeding animals and gathering tools. She moved carefully at first, but as the hours passed, she began to relax. Working with her hands helped quiet her thoughts. For the first time in a long while, she felt useful without feeling crushed. In the afternoon, they rested under a tree. The farmer handed her a cup of water and told her she could stay as long as she needed to regain her strength. There was no pressure in his words, only patience. She asked him why he lived alone. He smiled slightly and said some people choose quiet after a loud past. He explained that solitude helped him heal and understand himself, but he also admitted that even quiet lives could feel heavy sometimes. As the sun lowered again, the girl realized something important. The burden she carried had not disappeared, but it felt different. It no longer felt like it was crushing her chest. Sharing her story, even in pieces, had eased the weight. That night, as she lay in bed, she thought about the path ahead. She knew she could not run forever. She would have to face her responsibilities eventually. But now she understood that she did not have to face them alone or all at once. Outside, the farm settled into silence again. The farmer sat on the porch, looking at the stars. He knew the girl was standing at a crossroads in her life. Whatever choice she made next would shape her future. He hoped that during her time here, she would learn that strength could be gentle, and that even the heaviest burdens could be carried when shared. Both of them slept that night with thoughts of tomorrow. Change was coming, slow but steady, like the sunrise that would greet them again. The next few days passed quietly, but something important was changing little by little. The girl stayed on the farm, not as a guest who felt unsure, but as someone slowly finding balance. Each morning she woke before the sun, listening to the soft sounds of the land. At first, she still felt the weight in her chest when she opened her eyes, but it was no longer sharp. It felt dull, like an ache that could heal. The farmer never pushed her to talk. He believed words came best when they were ready. Instead, he showed her how to live with steady hands and a calm mind. He taught her simple farm tasks, not because he needed help, but because work gave the mind a place to rest. She learned how to feed the animals properly, how to fix small tools, and how to read the signs of weather by watching the sky. At first, she worked silently. Her thoughts were loud inside her head, full of worries she could not yet release. But as the days went on, the rhythm of the work began to settle her. There was comfort in doing one thing at a time. On the farm, no one expected her to solve everything at once. Each task had a beginning and an end, and that made her feel safe. One afternoon, while they were repairing a broken fence, she made a mistake. A wooden post slipped from her hands and fell to the ground with a loud sound. Her heart jumped. She froze, waiting for anger or disappointment. Back home, mistakes often brought sharp words or heavy looks, but the farmer only glanced over and said calmly that mistakes happened. He picked up the post and showed her a better way to hold it. There was no judgment in his voice. That small moment stayed with her longer than she expected. It showed her something new, that she did not have to be perfect to be accepted. Later that day, as they rested near the edge of the field, she finally spoke about her fear. She said she was scared of going back because people would expect her to be the same as before. She worried they would not understand how tired she was inside. The farmer listened, and then said something simple but powerful. He told her that people often see what they want to see, not what is truly there. But that did not mean she had to continue breaking herself to fit their image. He said change often made others uncomfortable, but that discomfort was not her responsibility to carry. The girl stared at the ground, thinking deeply. No one had ever told her that before. She had always believed that keeping peace meant carrying pain quietly. The idea that she could choose differently felt strange and almost frightening. That evening she opened her bundle for the first time since arriving. Inside were a few personal items, small things that held memories. As she touched them, emotions rose in her chest. The farmer noticed her struggle and quietly sat nearby, not too close, not too far. His presence was steady like an anchor. She spoke about her childhood, about learning to be strong early, about being praised for never complaining. At first, it had felt good to be trusted, but over time, that trust turned into pressure. She felt like she had no right to be tired. The farmer nodded slowly. He said that strength without rest eventually turns into pain. He told her that even the strongest land needs seasons of rest to grow again. Fields left without care become empty. People were no different. The next day, something unexpected happened. A visitor arrived at the edge of the property, someone from a nearby area who recognized the girl. Panic rose in her chest, and she stepped back instinctively. Old fears returned in an instant. The farmer noticed and did not rush. He spoke to the visitor calmly and respectfully, making it clear that the girl was safe and resting. He did not reveal details or make promises on her behalf. When the visitor left, the girl felt both relieved and shaken. She admitted that part of her wanted to run again. The farmer told her that running was sometimes a way to survive, but it could not always be a way to live. He reminded her that she had already taken a brave step by stopping here and facing herself. That night, she could not sleep. Her thoughts were loud again, but different this time. Instead of fear alone, there was also clarity. She realized she could not go back unchanged, but she also could not stay hidden forever. The following morning, she surprised the farmer by starting a conversation herself. She said she wanted to learn how to speak honestly without hurting others or herself. She wanted to face her responsibilities, but not at the cost of her well-being. The farmer smiled gently. He said that honesty did not have to be loud to be strong. He encouraged her to practice by speaking small truths first, saying when she was tired, saying when she needed time, saying when something felt too heavy. Over the next few days, she practiced exactly that. When work felt hard, she asked for a break. When memories hurt, she allowed herself to feel them without shame. Each small act built her confidence. The farm no longer felt like a hiding place. It felt like a place of learning. The girl began to stand taller, not because the burden was gone, but because she was no longer alone with it. One evening, as the sun set in soft colors across the land, she sat beside the farmer and thanked him. She said he had not saved her, but he had shown her how to save herself. The farmer replied that sometimes walking beside someone was more important than leading them. As the stars appeared, the girl felt something she had not felt in a long time: hope. She knew the road ahead would not be easy, but now she trusted her ability to walk it with honesty and strength. The weight she once thought was unbearable no longer defined her, and for the first time, she believed she could face what came next without losing herself. The morning sunlight filtered gently through the window as the girl woke up, her mind restless but determined. She had been thinking for days about the burden she carried, the responsibilities she could not ignore forever. The farm had become a quiet sanctuary, but she knew the time would come when she had to face the challenges waiting for her. Today, she felt ready to take a first step, not by running, not by hiding, but by confronting what she had avoided for so long. She stepped outside into the crisp morning air. The field stretched wide, glowing in the soft sunlight, and the animals moved about calmly, unconcerned with human struggles. The farmer was already tending the soil, working slowly and carefully as he always did. He noticed her approach and smiled, a quiet reassurance that she could take her time, that she did not have to rush. For a long moment, the girl stood at the edge of the field, gathering courage. She thought about her community, her family, and the expectations that had pressed on her for years. She remembered the nights she had cried silently, feeling the weight of responsibility crush her chest. But now she also remembered the quiet lessons she had learned here, lessons of patience, strength, and trust. She realized that confronting her burden did not mean carrying it alone. It meant facing it with clarity and honesty. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was soft but steady. She told the farmer that she needed to return home soon, to face the people who depended on her. She explained that she wanted to do it differently this time, to be honest about her limits and ask for support when she needed it. The farmer listened carefully, nodding without interrupting, understanding that this was a significant step for her. He asked if she was afraid. She admitted she was. Fear had always followed her closely, whispering that she could not succeed, that she would be seen as weak. But for the first time, she recognized that fear was not a reason to avoid life. It was a signal that she was about to grow. The farmer reminded her that bravery did not mean absence of fear. It meant acting in spite of it. The girl spent the morning preparing herself. She gathered her bundle carefully, arranging the small items she had brought with her, not as a symbol of fear, but as a reminder of how far she had come. She practiced speaking aloud, rehearsing how she would explain her feelings and needs to those who expected her to be strong without pause. Each word she said strengthened her resolve. When the sun climbed higher, she turned to the farmer and thanked him. She said that staying here had changed her life. It was not that he had solved her problems, but that he had shown her a way to face them with honesty, patience, and courage. The farmer simply smiled and reminded her that life was full of challenges, but no challenge was too heavy when one faced it with clarity and support. The journey back to her community was quiet. She walked steadily, carrying her bundle lightly now, not weighed down by fear. As she approached familiar paths, the memories of past struggles surfaced. She remembered the times she had been expected to do everything alone, the times she had felt invisible under the pressure. But instead of panic, she felt a steady calm. She knew she was no longer alone, and that gave her strength. When she arrived, the first faces she saw were surprised. People did not expect her to return so soon, and they certainly did not expect her to carry herself with such calm confidence. At first, she spoke carefully, explaining that she needed to share her feelings honestly, that she could not continue as before without support. Some listened, some frowned, but she did not falter. Each word she spoke reinforced the courage she had found on the farm. A small group stepped forward, offering help. They admitted that they had never realized how heavy her responsibilities were, how much she had carried silently. She accepted their support, not as a weakness, but as a necessary step to live fully and freely. The relief she felt was immense, like a river finally breaking through a dam. Throughout the day, she faced challenges with the quiet confidence she had learned from the farmer. She set boundaries when necessary and expressed her needs clearly. Slowly, she began to see that true strength was not in carrying everything alone, but in knowing when to ask for help and when to step back. By evening, she felt a lightness she had never known. The weight she had carried for so long was no longer crushing her. She had faced it, acknowledged it, and shared it with those who could help. The burden had not disappeared completely, but it had become manageable. That night, she reflected on her journey. From the first moment she had wandered onto the farmer's land, lost and fearful, to the point where she now stood, capable of facing her responsibilities, she had grown immensely. The lessons she had learned, the patience, the courage, the trust, and the willingness to share burdens would guide her for the rest of her life. The farmer, back on his quiet land, watched the stars and thought of the girl. He knew that she would face hardships still, but he also knew that she now had the tools to navigate them. He smiled softly, proud of the strength she had discovered within herself, a strength not born of endurance alone, but of honesty, connection, and courage. In the days that followed, the girl continued to apply what she had learned. She faced her duties with clear eyes and a steady heart. She asked for help when needed, spoke honestly about her limits, and encouraged others to do the same. Slowly, the community adjusted. People began to understand that sharing responsibility and supporting one another did not diminish anyone, it strengthened everyone. The girl's life was not perfect, and challenges still arose, but she no longer feared them the way she had before. She had learned that burdens could be shared, that honesty could bring relief, and that strength came from knowing when to reach out. Every step she took was measured, thoughtful, and confident. The heavy weight that had once seemed unbearable was now something she could carry with grace and resilience. And as she lay down to rest each night, she no longer felt alone. She remembered the quiet farm, the calm voice of the farmer, and the lessons she had learned there. She knew that courage was not a single act, but a continuous choice, made each day in the face of life's pressures. The girl had faced the weight she had once thought too big, and she had discovered that no burden was too heavy when met with honesty, trust, and strength shared with others. Her journey was far from over, but she had taken the most important step, learning to stand tall, not despite her struggles but alongside them. And in that she found freedom. The sun rose slowly, painting the sky with gentle shades of pink and gold. The girl woke up with a calm feeling she had never known before. She no longer carried the fear that had shadowed her for years. The weight she once thought unbearable now felt lighter, shaped not by denial, but by understanding. She had learned to face life differently, not by running, not by hiding, but by embracing honesty and seeking support when needed. Today felt like the beginning of a new chapter. She packed her small bundle carefully, checking that everything was in place. Each item she touched reminded her of the journey she had traveled, from fear to courage, from silence to speaking her truth. She smiled faintly, thinking about the quiet farm, the patient farmer, and the lessons that had quietly shaped her heart. Today she would step back into the world she had once fled, but this time with strength, clarity, and a steady mind. The walk back through the fields was peaceful. Birds sang softly, and the wind rustled through the grass as if celebrating the new chapter in her life. She breathed deeply, feeling the sun warm her face. The path she once feared now felt familiar and safe. Each step reminded her that courage was not the absence of fear, but acting in spite of it. She thought of all the times she had tried to be strong alone, and realized that real strength came from understanding one's limits and asking for help when needed. When she reached her community, familiar sights greeted her: small homes, dusty paths, and faces that had once been a source of anxiety. But today, she faced them differently. She walked with her head held high, shoulders relaxed, and a calm determination in her eyes. People noticed immediately. Some stared in surprise, unsure how to react. Others whispered quietly, sensing the change in her demeanor. For the first time, she felt no need to explain herself. Her confidence and honesty spoke louder than any words. The girl took a deep breath and approached the people who had depended on her for so long. She began speaking calmly, explaining that she had faced the burden that had seemed too heavy to bear. She shared how she had learned to ask for help, set boundaries, and face responsibilities without losing herself. Her voice was steady, and each word carried a sense of purpose. The people listened. At first, some struggled to understand, but slowly, recognition and respect replaced confusion. They saw the change, not as rebellion, but as growth. Some individuals stepped forward, apologizing for expecting too much too soon. They admitted they had never realized the pressure she had carried in silence. The girl accepted their apologies gracefully, but more importantly, she accepted their willingness to support her. She understood that strength was not about enduring alone. It was about shared effort, honesty, and trust. Relief filled her chest. She no longer felt like the weight she carried was hers alone. Over the following days, she began to apply what she had learned on the farm. She spoke openly when tasks felt overwhelming, asked for help when necessary, and encouraged others to share responsibility. Slowly, the community began to change. People realized that supporting one another did not make them weak, it made everyone stronger. Tasks were completed with cooperation, conversations became more honest, and burdens were shared more fairly. The girl felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She was no longer trapped under the weight of expectations, but was part of a network of understanding and support. Evenings became moments of reflection. She would sit quietly under the stars, thinking of the farmer who had shown her the way. She remembered his gentle voice, his patience, and his quiet guidance. She realized that courage could be cultivated in silence, strength could grow in calm, and burdens could be lightened through connection. Each memory strengthened her resolve and reminded her that the journey of growth never truly ended. It evolved with every choice, every action, and every honest word spoken. The girl also began helping others who struggled quietly, just as she had once struggled. She would listen to their stories, offer encouragement, and remind them that seeking support was a sign of strength, not weakness. Through this, she discovered a new kind of fulfillment, one that came from guiding others toward the light she had found. Each person she helped was a reminder that burdens shared became lighter, and hearts that connected healed faster. Life was not without challenges. There were moments when old fears surfaced, when expectations returned, and when the weight of responsibility seemed heavy again. But each time she remembered the lessons learned on the farm. She spoke her truth, sought support when needed, and faced obstacles with calm determination. Slowly but surely, the unbearable became manageable, the overwhelming became a challenge she could meet, and the impossible felt within reach. The farmer remained in her thoughts often. She never saw him again after returning to her community, but his lessons stayed. She realized that true guidance was not about giving answers. It was about showing how to find them within oneself. She carried his wisdom in her heart, and it shaped every decision she made. The girl had transformed, not because someone solved her problems, but because she had learned to face them with courage, honesty, and trust. As weeks turned into months, she became a figure of quiet strength in her community. Others came to her for advice and comfort, sensing the calm confidence she carried. She continued to grow, learning each day that burdens, no matter how heavy, could be met with honesty, patience, and shared support. The weight she once thought too big to bear had transformed. It no longer crushed her. It taught her, shaped her, and gave her the strength to help others. And as she lay down each night under the quiet sky, she reflected on the journey she had traveled. From the lost, frightened girl who wandered onto a stranger's land, to the young woman who faced her responsibilities with courage, she had discovered a truth that would guide her forever. Strength is not in carrying everything alone, but in knowing when to ask for help, when to speak honestly, and when to stand tall with support. Her story ended not with perfection, but with growth, resilience, and freedom. She had faced the burden that once seemed too big, and in doing so, she had discovered that no weight is too heavy when met with courage, honesty, and connection. Life would continue to bring challenges, but she would meet them with steady steps, clear mind, and a heart that no longer feared the impossible. She had found the strength to bear life's weight, not alone, but with wisdom, support, and courage, and in that she was truly free.